In 1975, a 15-year-old girl named Martha Moxley was murdered on her own front lawn in the wealthiest neighborhood in Connecticut, bludgeoned and stabbed with a 6-iron golf club.
Wait, a golf club? That feels specifically country club.
Exactly. And the club belonged to a set owned by her neighbors, the Skakels, who just happened to be the nephews of Ethel Kennedy, the widow of Robert F. Kennedy.
So we have a brutal crime, a wealthy enclave, and the most powerful political dynasty in American history. I'm guessing this wasn't an open and shut case.
Not even close. It took 27 years to get a conviction, only for the entire legal system to spend the next 2 decades trying to decide if they actually got the right guy. To understand this story, you have to picture Belle Haven in the mid-70s. It's an ultra-exclusive gated community in Greenwich. It's the kind of place where people didn't lock their doors because they felt the gates kept the world out.
Until the world or something worse got inside.
October 30th, 1975, it's Mischief Night, the night before Halloween. Martha Moxley goes out with friends to cause some harmless trouble. She ends up at the Skakel house across the street. There are 7 Skakel kids, no mother, and a father who's often away. It's basically a high society Lord of the Flies.
Who was at the house that night?
Among others, there's 17-year-old Tommy Skakel and 15-year-old Michael. Martha is seen flirting with Tommy. They're seen together near her property around 9:30 p.m. That is the last time anyone sees her alive.
When does the alarm go off?
Not until the next morning. A neighbor finds Martha's body under a pine tree on the Moxley estate. She'd been beaten so hard with the golf club that the metal shaft had shattered. The killer then used a jagged piece of that shaft to stab her through the neck.
That is incredibly personal and incredibly violent. Did the police jump on the Skakels immediately?
They found the matching clubs in the house, but the investigation stalled. People claimed the Skakel wealth and the Kennedy connection acted like a shield. The police didn't secure the scene properly, and the family eventually stopped cooperating. For 20 years, the case just sat there.
So how does a 20-year-old cold case suddenly result in a conviction in the 2000s? Did they find DNA?
No DNA. This is where the story gets wild. In the early 90s, the father, Rushton Skakel, actually hired private investigators to clear his son's names, but the investigators found something they didn't expect. Michael Skakel's alibi was full of holes.
The father accidentally nuked his own son's defense?
Essentially, then high-profile authors like Dominic Dunn and Mark Furman, yes, the detective from the O.J. Simpson trial, wrote books pointing the finger directly at Michael. The public pressure became a tidal wave. In 2000, Michael Skakel was finally arrested.
But if there's no DNA and no red-handed witness, what was the evidence?
It came down to a place called the Elon School. It was a reform school for troubled, wealthy kids that Michael attended years after the murder. Former students testified that Michael had confessed to them during intense, almost cult-like group therapy sessions. One witness claimed Michael said, "I'm going to get away with murder. I'm a Kennedy."
That sounds like a prosecutor's dream, but also a bit shaky. Reform school kids testifying about things said decades ago?
It worked. In 2002, a jury found Michael guilty. He was sentenced to 20 years to life. Martha's mother, Dorothy, finally felt she had justice, but the legal system wasn't done with Michael Skakel.
Let me guess. The Kennedy lawyer steps in?
It was more about the lawyer who was already there. In 2013, a judge vacated the conviction, not because Michael was proven innocent, but because his original trial lawyer, Michael Sherman, was deemed constitutionally inadequate.
What did the lawyer do or not do?
He failed to call a key alibi witness, and most importantly, he didn't lean hard enough on the other obvious suspect, Michael's brother, Tommy, who was the last person seen with Martha. The court ruled that if the jury had known everything the lawyer missed, they might have reached a different verdict. This case became a ping-pong match in the Connecticut Supreme Court. They reinstated the conviction in 2016, then reversed themselves in 2018. Finally, in 2020, exactly 45 years to the day after the murder, the state announced they wouldn't retry him. They said too many witnesses were dead, and the passage of time made a fair trial impossible.
So after all that, Michael Skakel is a free man. But the case is officially unsolved again.
Exactly. It's a legal limbo. To many, it's the ultimate proof that if you have enough money, you can eventually exhaust the clock of justice. To others, it's a story about a botched investigation that almost put an innocent man away forever because of his last name.
It's also about the Moxley family. They spent nearly half a century in a courtroom just to end up back at square one.
Martha's mother, Dorothy, remained incredibly dignified through it all. She still believes Michael did it. But legally, the file is closed. No one is in prison for the death of Martha Moxley.
It's a haunting ending. What's the one thing to remember about the Martha Moxley case?
It stands as the ultimate example of how privilege and media pressure can complicate the search for truth until that truth becomes impossible to find.
That's Wikipedia. Every story on demand. Search your next topic at wikipedia.ii.